Welcome, Forrest. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
So you wrote two essays for the book.
I
A bit of
know.
an overachiever.
Sorry. I got on a roll and then I was like, wait, I have like two different thoughts and they're splitting, and so I might as well write two. So thank you for
Absolutely.
letting me. Appreciate it.
So today for this conference, we wanted to hear specifically about your essay, God's Creative Diversity, which is about intersex people and how intersex people in particular are kind of a sticking point for people who want to reject the LGBTQ plus community. So can you talk a little bit about that and about how this issue in particular came to your mind?
Well, actually, in my understanding, I went to Northwest Nazarene University, and as a freshman or sophomore, you pick up your psychology book. Like it's this thing, and I read through it just right now, trying to see if I could find the thing that was highlighted, but it wasn't. But when I went through psychology, I came across something that said, "Yeah, by the way, there are people walking around who are not just XX and XY, the um now I'm getting confused, man and women categories, whatever, but there's people with just one X, or XX and Y, or triple XY, and then you got people with, I don't know, X and a double Y, and they're just walking around like people. And I'm like, wait, like, if, okay, I understand, like, if you have an accident and something gets chopped off, like, you're still a man, right? Like, yeah, we can all agree on that. But like, there are people out there who have a diversity of, like, it's there, it's not there, whatever. Oh, but we can trust our chromosomes, right? Our chromosomes are the thing that tells us who we are. So if there's any confusion, just head to the chromosomes. We're all right. Pew pew. We got this figured out. So when I found out, it muddies the water. It confuses things. I'm like, then what are we doing telling people who they are? Like, this isn't right. Like, you can't tell somebody that, like, first of all, it's not body parts, but second of all, it's not chromosomes. Then why are we arguing? Holy goodness. So and so I about 5 years ago in a Facebook group posted, like, hey, I came across this article that said we have like 6 types of humans chromosomally. So that's kind of interesting. But secondly, the article continues on, which I didn't even go on into my chapter, which says there seems to be certain wave patterns and certain patterns in the ways that the mind, the brain works. And women typically think in a spaghetti kind of a way. Everything's connected, everything like this. And men are very like linear. Yeah. And it says people who tend to think linearly also tend to identify as male, and people who think in certain ways, in spaghetti sort of ways, tend to identify as female, regardless of what their body or their chromosome said. And I was just flabbergasted by this essay, and I just said, hey, you guys, we need to discuss this. And it was a very open and honest conversation, and it got me to thinking, like, our church needs to be on this conversation about how God made people, and we can't change those things. So let's have that conversation. And just like a lot of the conversation here, it kind of just, nothing was done. General Assembly happened and nothing changed. And so I at least wanted to say in my essay, which I did, the diversity of the world, and all that God made is so astounding that that we also need to consider our human diversity as God made us. And
Right.
it's fantastic. And it's
Forrest, I think you're frozen there.
huh?
Oh,
Oh, I paused just in case I was taking up a lot of volume here and not giving much chance to
oh
listen.
no,
So
you're great. It was the perfect timing. Your video froze for a moment, but I caught just the end of your sentence there. Yeah, I absolutely. I'm curious how, when you've sort of made this kind of shocking discovery of your own about this research and about, the reality of God's diversity, how did people react? How did your pastor react? I don't know if this is information you've shared. How do you move forward with this now?
Well, I made that post on my wall publicly because I'm like, hey, you can't deny what is. So you can be a jerk about it, um but that just kind of shows you who you are, like, let's talk about it, let's be Christ-like in our discussion. And it was all very simple and it was very educational, on my wall somewhere publicly, years and years gone by. And so that was just fine. But I started to come a little bit more public with fully affirming when I found out just a year or two ago that one of my guy bud friends from college was a female. I was very confused because he was just a dude and now she's a dudette. And I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody. I'm just trying to be how I experienced all this. And so I trying to be kind and trying to figure out, one of my good friends, how this happened. She said, hey, let's private message. So we talked. She thought that she was a he her whole life. And then after marriage to a woman, he grew up a boy. She grew up a boy. She started to menstruate, and I'm like, excuse me, how, what? I mean, huh? And he's like, yes, apparently when I was born, I had both parts. And the doctors and my parents apparently secretly decided that they could remove the female part and I would be raised as a boy, but apparently they didn't get everything in the plumbing. And she said, had I been given the choice, I had a spaghetti kind of a mind. I thought like girls do. I never really understood how guys work. She was soft spoken as a boy, but whatever. And so I'm like, I don't need to know a whole lot. And she's like, it's okay. I'm an LGBTQ advocate. This is a job that I do. So she's in California right now helping people. So she's like, I've had this conversation with everybody. It's okay. So I ask about plumbing and everything, and I feel bad about that. But she said, when I was in the womb, apparently I had a twin, and my twin was a boy, and the other one of me was a girl, and our female and male chromosomes came together as one, and I am a chimera. I am both male, I am both female, and I'm like, whoa, dude. So you don't even know what your chromosomes are. He says, based on what the doctors are guessing, I am both. I have both XY and XX. And I'm like, so how in the world could the church tell you anything? And she's like, but the church did. And they won't let me lead Sunday school. They won't let me lead in the church. And because I'm presenting as female and married to my wife, because my wife decided to stay because she's married to me and not the masculine male body of me, she made that difficult decision. And she did participate in writing in this book one of the chapters. So you can read her story too.
Yeah, that's really, really, it's important that we hold on to that type of nuance. I think in this larger conversation, a lot of times it's easy to just think that we're talking about, oh, gay people, that it's about homosexuality, quote unquote, or that, gender is just men and women. But adding this more complicated, nuanced approach to, the beauty of God's creation, I think is not only necessary, but it's true, it's factual. How can we turn a blind eye to the reality, that people experience? And this is a great example that we've talked about, that personal relationships with queer people is so, so powerful. So yeah, thank you, Forrest, so much for sharing your experience. I think that's really valuable to give some more nuance and context to this conversation.
Thank you. I was asked, I made this interview that I had with her public, and one of my friends said, "So what are you planning on doing with this?" I said, "Well, I hope that this interview that I had with this person can help form the GS's opinion." And they said, "Oh, well, that's such a low." Somebody who was arguing with me online said, "This is such a rare instance. Let's just forget about the rare instances." And as I say in my chapter, like, there are so many more people with just changes in genetics and body types than there are even Nazarenes in the world. There's 51 times as many people with genetic differences as there are Nazarenes in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, in some ways, at least.
Wow,
Anyway,
that's a strong number to keep in mind. Well, I think that I think we're out of time here, but some of these resources I think will be really valuable. So I'm sure we can add some links to the articles and to the interview, et cetera. So thank you so much, Forrest.
You're welcome. Thanks.